Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Look, see, come on now. Thank you so much for joining us. I know there are a lot of really exciting options during this block, so we are deeply, deeply happy that you decided to join us today. My name is Andrew Vega. I am a senior associate partner on the Innovative Schools team at NewSchools. My main role is supporting our year one launched schools, 4 of which are represented on our panel today. Prior to joining NewSchools, I was a school leader for 8 years, both in a district and charter sector, and that included leading an autism inclusion school. Oh, great, love it. We are a mighty little squad, and we're all here. I love that for us. Additionally, I have 2 nieces on the autism spectrum, both of whom had a very rough start to their K-12 educations. And before I was any of those things, I was the son of Maria and Jose, who are Mexican immigrants who met picking dates in the Coachella Valley. So the work that these schools are doing, for me, is not only incredible, but it is also deeply personal and aligns with what I think our schools need to be doing for those specialized populations. We are here to hear from school leaders who built schools that are critically designed for students whose needs have not traditionally been met. Students with dyslexia, newcomers, bilingual students, and students on the autism spectrum. We know that things are rapidly changing. There's an AI session every single block that is happening. And we also know that these students are still the ones most likely to be left behind. So what we're excited to share with you today are the stories of 4 school leaders who designed their schools specifically with these students in mind. All the decisions they've made from launch to now are informed by that specific profile of student and their unique needs. Before we get started, in theory this is gonna work, y'all. I'm not a good Mentimeter person. I have a lot of trauma from being a principal during the pandemic and running slideshows. But in theory, if you use this, you will get a question asking about what you believe is the biggest barrier to building schools designed for the most marginalized students. Okay, some responses. Not going to reject it, but I promise I'm not lying. So the choices were funding and resources, political policy and environments, the leadership pipeline, systems and accountability structures, and community trust. And as I'm looking at this, the front runner is funding and resources, followed closely by leadership pipeline, system accountability, and structures. Oh, leadership pipeline making a comeback. It's like the Kentucky Derby. Here we go. All right, so it looks like it's a blend of the funding resources and the leadership pipeline, which is wonderful because here is the intersection of those 2 things. We at NewSchools are very excited to fund these models that are designed for these students, and we are thrilled that these 4 absolutely outstanding leaders are those who chose to step up to the plate. And now I'm going to let each one of them take a quick 2 minutes to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Borges. I'm the founding principal of the Central Brooklyn Literacy Academy. And we are a school that serves students that live with dyslexia as well as language-based learning differences. And we are the 2nd district school in New York City that's open. We have a sister school in the South Bronx.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Antonio Baca. I'm the director for refugee and newcomer supports for Albuquerque Public Schools and co-founder for APS International High School, which just launched this year. Our high school is part of the Internationals Network, and it's the first high school, newcomer high school in New Mexico. Yeah, we serve 9th and 10th grade this year, and we're adding grades as we go along.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Crystal Howe, and I am honored to be the founding school leader of Honor Preparatory Charter School in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was waiting for one. Thank you. Thank you. I just knew there was one. Thank you. We are the only non-selective dual language immersion Spanish-English school in our region of Charlotte. And currently we're serving students in grades kindergarten through second grade, and we're growing to be K-5.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Kafle. I am a co-founder and principal of Autism Collier Charter School. Thanks, my autism people in the room. We are located in Naples, Florida, Southwest Florida. We serve grades K through 12. Right now, we serve students most impacted by their disability, so level 2, level 3 autism. We have 80 students this year and over 300 on our waiting list. And we launched in August, and super excited to be here to talk a little bit more about that with you today.
Thanks, friends. Round of applause for our leaders. Beautiful. So these 4 leaders made a different choice in a landscape that, at its best, is kind of indifferent to the students they serve, and at its worst, is openly attacking the students that they serve. They all exist in a very intense political and social climate. In fact, when I visited Autism Collier as part of our diligence process, there was a very messy conversation happening nationally about the root causes of autism and how that impacted her ability to engage families and students and the types of conversations they were having. All my autism friends have the same look on their faces that I did that whole time. And again, newcomers, bilingual students, something Crystal did not mention is a majority of her staff are also immigrants. And there were implications there for their school. So this session is about what they learned, how they design, how they lead, and what the rest of us need to do differently in order to support schools like theirs. So I want to start with the why here, when starting with Jason. And for all of you, what drove you to launch this school in this very messy moment, and why does it matter?
So launching Central Brooklyn Literacy Academy in a moment of declining enrollments as well as school closures, obviously really hard, really difficult. However, it has to be done because the students that we serve did not have they're still not having access to the supports that they need around foundational skills, language supports, and access. And we did not want to try to retrofit a system that's not designed for them. So taking that into account, we wanted to start a school, a district public school, that's based on equity and access, and ensuring that access and excellence are not in tension, right? That schools face choices where, do I support striving readers and writers, or do I just go towards rigor and so-called high expectations and exclude striving readers?
So for our school, for a number of years, newcomer students in our district were not being adequately served. And it became really apparent in 2018 during another period of time that was very difficult for immigrant and refugee students and families. And the community really organized and pushed our district to do something different. And so that's when I came into this position in APS to help lead the charge. And we made a lot of great progress in making connections with Internationals Network and working with community, building a community advisory council. But COVID hit, and it really disrupted our progress towards this goal. But we got back on track, and with NewSchools funding, we were able to get back on track and launch the school in August. So we just launched in August 2025, and it turned out to be a really difficult time to also start a school that serves immigrant and refugee students, but it also proved to be more important than ever. So,
thank you. And so for us at Honor Prep, as we're also affectionately known, during our initial planning stages, we surveyed a lot of families in our community. And one thing that we heard consistently was that families felt as though their linguistic and cultural identities were seen as barriers instead of assets. And so students and families, in essence, were feeling as though they had to check parts of who they were at the door. And really, it was an impossible choice when you think about it, because either they had to relocate to a completely different district and all that comes with that, or try to hide who they were, how they showed up every day, how they spoke even. And so our school was born from a commitment to really offer them something different. Our motto at Honor Prep is Juntos amplificamos cada voz. And I see some smiles, so I know that I have some understanding here, which is that together we amplify every voice. And so as I mentioned, we're the only non-selective dual language immersion school in the Charlotte area, and all the other district schools are magnet programs. So with us, families didn't have to choose between belonging and opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Crystal. So the short answer to why and why now for us was a mother's quest. I'm one of 3 co-founders, and really the impetus for our school came from a mom named Stephanie who has 2 boys, twins, on the autism spectrum. They're 16 this year. And again, you keep hearing equity and access. When you have a neurotypical child, you have all kinds of choices for school, right? All kinds of choices. When you have a child with a disability, much less a significant disability, your choices are slim to none. Much less tuition-free options. So for us, it was born out of from a parent, from a mom. For me personally, I spent the last 8 years prior to this working for the district in which we're located. I was the special education director. And I was tired. I was tired of fighting for things that I didn't feel like I should be fighting for. I was tired of the gap between what we were able to do and what I knew we should do. I'd go to board meetings every month and hear parents speaking during general comment about things that they wanted and things that they felt their children need, and were told no over and over and over again. And so one thing I didn't realize until we opened, I kind of had my blinders on in my own little world, half of our students came to us from home education. They weren't even in school. I had no idea how many families chose to pull their children out of traditional school. And they were looking for something smaller, something more transparent, somewhere where they could feel like they were partners in their child's educational journey. And so we were committed to providing that. If you were in the last session about parents, that really resonated with me as well, and thinking, gosh, that's why we do what we do. That's why, so many of our families come with kind of some PTSD. And then also personally, I have a niece, her name's Opal. She's in 5th grade at my school. And I wasn't super excited about her middle school options, so decided we needed to do something about that.
So the trend here is parents need it, students deserve it, all this stuff is going on, we're going to do it anyway. There is an unwavering commitment to meet the demand for these students in spite of the contextual challenges that these leaders were facing. They chose, and as someone who was with some of them during their planning phases, some of these challenges were scary. Some of them had some pretty intense hurdles, and yet all of them launched successfully. And having been to 3 of the 4, and I'll get to APS, I promise, they are really leaning into those values. I've met those twins. I've met parents who have told me, I'm so glad they're still speaking Spanish at school. I've seen students who, for the first time, can read. Just letting that they can read in 3rd grade for the first time. So with that has to come some intentional design choices. I want to start with Crystal, and then folks can chime in. What is a design choice you all made very early on about how your school works? And how does it design not just for who students are, but how they learn?
Thank you. That's a really wonderful question. And for us, it was interesting because a lot of times we have found that schools will think about linguistic and cultural elements as add-ons. And for us, really, it was the center of our model. So instead of thinking about, how do we fit multilingual learners into a traditional model, really it was what does the model become if bilingualism is at the center. And so that led us to commit to a fully immersive 90-10 approach or design, which means that in kindergarten and first grade, the primary language of instruction is Spanish. And honestly, transparently, in the current accountability model in North Carolina, that decision that we made comes with a real tension. The learning system and the way that it's assessed isn't really designed to measure what we found we valued most, which were biliteracy, cognitive flexibility, and then also identity development. And so that's a tension that we have to wrestle with and we'll have to wrestle with every year. I say we'll have to, we just started in August. I don't know if I shared that. So seeing down the line, it is definitely a tension we'll have to wrestle with. And so what we learned from that is that staying true to the model doesn't mean that we have to be rigid. Our second grade cohort, they entered without the full immersion experience. And so as a result, we shifted the model slightly for them. And they actually are 80-20 with their primary language of instruction being in English, and then they will build to 50-50 from there. And we chose that because it reinforced our belief, which is that fidelity to students has to come before fidelity to a plan. And so another way that we have shown that intentional decision-making is in our Friday HP Unidos sessions. It's a 30-minute school-wide assembly. It's so fun. You guys are welcome to come. We'd love to see you there. And at the assembly, teachers share a lot about their culture, their home countries. Students engage with singing, dancing, we chant, and we intentionally invest this instructional time. And a question we get a lot is, well, what about your test scores? And it is a good question, and it should be asked. And the answer we give is that, we all know the relationship or the connection between students and feeling a sense of belonging and how well they're able to engage, and then from there, achieve. And so the minutes and the time that we invest in programs like HP Unidos, we get back in the quality of instruction in every minute and every day.
So an intentional design element that we put into place right away was the idea of presuming competence. How many of you guys have heard of it? All right, good. So if you haven't heard of it, I want you to Google it or ChatGPT it or Claude it, whatever your thing is, because it's not a new concept, but it's not one you hear in schools very often. And it's just the idea that for every child in front of us, we presume that they can, regardless of how they present, regardless of their ability to communicate verbally. They can think, experience, feel, learn. And many of our students, especially non-speaking ones, have been underestimated for many years and presumed that they can't do things. And when you think about it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If I don't think you can, then I don't give you opportunities to, so you don't. But if I think you can, then I give you opportunities to, and maybe you do. And we've seen that really come to life in a lot of really powerful ways with our students. Just a couple of examples. We have a ninth grader, Omar, who came to us, now again, ninth grade, no functional way of communicating. Nonverbal, non-speaking, no pictures, no assistive technology, nothing. And was what presented originally as very aggressive, a staff with scratches up and down their necks, right? Well, we introduced an augmentative or alternative communication device to him, and the first thing he learned how to ask for was a hug. And turns out he was just looking for connection. He just wanted a hug. And I'll tell you, I go into his classroom, I see him in the hallway, and he comes at you. And your life flashes before your eyes a little bit. But I know what he wants, and so I'll say, what do you want? And he goes and he grabs his device and he says, hug. And man, I will give you hugs all day long. So what a difference in perception, right, and reality. The other one is Kai, and I have to pull something out to show you. So Kai and his family moved from Michigan for our school. They relocated across the country. This is a book that Kai published a couple months ago. Would love for you guys all to check it out. It will also be on Amazon and on our school website very shortly. All proceeds benefit our school. But Kai is an 8th grader. He's 14. His parents had they had tried public education every year, and every year they ended up pulling him out and homeschooling him because he didn't fit into a mold. And his spirit was broken every year. And I don't think that what we've done is really that miraculous, but what we've done is just meet him where he is and celebrate his unique gifts and his abilities. And his self-esteem and his confidence have skyrocketed. It just blows my mind that he didn't have the self-esteem and self-confidence that we see from him every day, because he is marvelous. He and I actually co-wrote a interactive drama that we presented at a fundraising event that we had. Madly successful. He used speech to text, and his images he makes in Legos and then takes pictures and uploads them into AI and gives them prompts. And here we have a self-published, author at age 14. So, presuming competence is an intentional design feature that we knew was important from the very beginning. It's built into everything that we do. It's really cool to see our staff internalize it. I'll have teachers come to me and tell me about something that happened that day. They'll say, I almost didn't do this, but then I thought, why not? Let me try. I presumed competence. And then, the kids surprised them. So that's, I would say, our design feature.
I want to invite the two gentlemen to also chime in as short as you can. We're talking like 30-second snapshots about it.
A few design choices that we made. Number one is that students, immigrant and refugee students, don't need to master English before they can access rigorous content. So that was really important, and that's what really drew us to the Internationals Network. And then secondly, we really wanted to design around student assets. For example, in 2022, we were running our summer program, and every summer program, every day starts with a learning circle with students in multiple languages. And at that time, there was an earthquake in Afghanistan that was very devastating, and we knew our students were watching it unfold live on TikTok. Very, very graphic, very depressing. So we decided to open up that conversation. And lo and behold, we had a 17-year-old student from Afghanistan who had never been to school before, did not know how to read and write in her native language. Yet she raised her hand and actually recited a poem from Rumi, one of the greatest authors in history, from memory, and about tragedy and about healing. And we knew at that moment that we needed to do something different and really build around students like her as well.
Yeah, I just want to touch upon something briefly around the relationship between structure and identity for our students, because it's very intentional that our learning environment and model it's highly structured, it's predictable, and less structure doesn't equate, right, to meaning that you have more voice, right? That it actually when we do that for our students, it actually removes access for them. So it's very intentional that we center a lot of our model on explicit instruction, structured literacy, as well as language supports for our students. It doesn't mean that we don't have discussion, right? Like, we do have discussion. Our teachers are not knowledge builders, but also, again, support language development. So belonging, comes because students can access the learning, right? That not instead of it.
Thanks. And in case anyone was wondering, yes, I got a hug when I visited Autism Collier. That young man had a good foot on me, but it was a good hug. Most do. It's fine. So I want to elevate that. With these intentional design choices come 4 very, very, very different schools. And having been to 3 of the 4 of them, the experiences are quite different, right? So in Emily's school, you will see a wide range of different things happening for students to demonstrate their competence. In Crystal's school, you will see belonging central. How are we doing when I visited, I did see one of those 30-minute assemblies, and someone might think that's a lot of time. At APS, talking about dialogue and discourse in native languages, as opposed to how are we pushing an English-only must-read. And Jason, if you don't know what you're seeing, it looks very rigid, but it's exactly what those students need. And I think as funders, it is actually our responsibility to enter those schools informed. Because I can tell you, I've gone into some buildings, and I'll use the first LAC school as an example, South Bronx Literacy Academy. I went with another colleague, 2 colleagues of mine. One was just joining me for the visit, didn't really have a lot of expertise in special education or dyslexia. And when we left the building, this colleague was like, I don't know, there weren't a lot of posters, it was pretty rigid, like, I was like, no, that is exactly what that's supposed to look like. This school was a masterclass in the best practices for students with dyslexia. Every student in that building was reading. When we saw them in the hallway, they were happy. They loved being at school. But what if someone else had entered and didn't know that? What if someone entered Emily's school and just asked, why is this student out of the classroom? Why is this student taking a nap? Why is this student approaching me out of nowhere? So a push I have for many of us is if you're visiting a school for specialized populations, do your homework. Make sure that you enter as a guest who is informed. And to the leaders, my charge is when you invite people, let them know what you're about before you give them permission to be with your children. That is very important. I will talk about that all day. So hard work, no doubt required some professional sacrifices that you didn't anticipate. So I know we've got some planner folks in here who are preparing to launch this fall. So let's talk about, with Emily and Jason, what you encountered that you weren't anticipating. I'm going to ask that we make it a little bit shorter than we originally discussed, just so I want to make sure we get to Q&A.
You got it. So I guess for me, it was courageous conversations with staff. I thought, I'm coming from the district. I was a district leader. I've had lots of courageous conversations. Nothing like what I was prepared for. Time is of the essence, right? Our kids need every second of every minute. So I don't have time to waste if you're a staff member that's not doing what you need to be doing. I have no problem investing in someone who's showing me that they're willing and they're ready. But if we've talked about it and you're not doing it, we got some conversations to have. So we actually turned over 8 of 42 staff members in the first quarter, which is 20%, but it was addition by subtraction. I was always nervous about, who's waiting in the wings, right? But without fail, the right person came and it was almost like brought. And so having those courageous conversations and being willing to have them and just practice, that I didn't necessarily expect that, but didn't have a choice but to embrace it.
For me, I have spent, I'm 25 years in as a literacy specialist, but for the past decade, I was working at the district level, supporting schools with implementing a lot of the practices that we have in our school. So I come with some deep content knowledge, but one thing that I've learned is I've got humble really quickly as we lifted up the curtain for our school in August and working with our staff, because I had to slow my pace down, because it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to build it. And so something that I readily learned, and it was readily apparent to me, is by slowing down, is articulating the why with the staff consistently, getting them to understand our why before we really dig into the how. And because of that, we had to build that collective understanding to move forward. But some leadership moves that we made are we have an instructional leadership team. With that instructional leadership team, it's not about just socializing direction with those teacher leaders, but really to build the space and set the conditions for them to problem solve by looking at data together and getting conditions to start to get teachers to reflect on what's going on to move us forward. But yeah, for me, it's really slowing my pace down.
Thank you. Something else I want to elevate about how we engaged with these 2 schools and how I hope others can learn from it is both of them got site visits as part of their diligence. Emily was transparent about staff turnover. Jason was transparent about building those systems. And for some funders, that may have felt like a very risky choice. When we go into schools, we really think about, is the container there to achieve the vision? Are the leaders aware of where they need to go? And if the answer is yes, and the mission and values are there, this is a school worth betting on. So another push I have is sometimes the runways are a little bit longer, and I know some of our folks are going to talk about that in a second, but it is really important for those of us in these positions to be really clear on what our non-negotiables are and make room for what it looks like to support the types of students that they are working with. So with that, and this will be for everyone, starting with Antonio, what should the broader field learn from what you've built? And what do we keep getting wrong? I want to make sure we do have time for Q&A, so we'll keep it as concise as possible. But what can we learn, and what do we keep getting wrong, Antonio?
I think first, when we hear the word refugee, we often think about the tragedies that people have survived, but we don't often think about the strengths that they bring with them. So we often hear the pobrecito kind of poor thing for refugee students, but we oftentimes lack when we're recognizing their resiliency and survival. And so going back even to the student that I mentioned earlier from Afghanistan, she actually spoke 4 languages too. So that's massive. And she graduated while caring for her ailing father. They're incredible stories, and it's really, really important for us to invest in students such as her in times like these in particular.
Thank you. I'll say very quickly that, as I mentioned before, in a dual language immersion school, some of the values that we hold and the skills that we prioritize may not show up immediately on the traditional standardized testing. And so I would encourage us to think about, student achievement as more than just what can they demonstrate right now in one language on one assessment at this point in time, but really if we're looking to have more schools like ours specifically, giving, as you said, a wider runway and a wider achievement arc so that students can really shine in what we found are not necessarily soft skills, but the things that matter most. Yeah.
And the trend there is the systems aren't always capturing the value of these schools. And perhaps that is why these students are often left behind. Particularly in an age of we need to see impact right away. A lot of it requires examinations of what impact is. I will share again, when we visited these schools, the main thing we looked for is there a spirit of inclusion and belonging here? Is this a safe place to be? Is it a joyful place to be? And we just completed 11 of 14 more thorough visits to our year 1 schools. And one of the most consistent trends is their sense of belonging and inclusion is stellar. These are happy, joyful, wonderful schools that students, teachers, and parents love being at. And if you're a school leader, that gives you the conditions to do the hard work because your team is bought in. So it's important to think through how are we elevating those things in selection processes and when we talk about impact of our schools. Last question before we get to the Q&A. If folks are building these types of schools right now, or just building a school in general, what is one thing you would urge them to do differently based on what you've learned in launching your schools? And we'll start again with Antonio.
So one of the greatest opportunities in my life was really leading a study at the University of New Mexico, where I had the chance to meet virtually all of the families coming in, all of the refugee families being resettled in Albuquerque. And I was able to spend a lot of time with them in their homes, having tea, sitting on the floor, and enjoying the amazing hospitality from immigrant and refugees from all over the world. And I think that's what I'd really recommend the most, is that people take some time out of their day to do a home visit and meet with families. and really do it genuinely, just to listen and to chat. And I think that has been very transformative for myself. And I would say the same for funders as well. And yeah, I think that's...
Thank you. I would say the first thing is just if you're funding schools, thank you, first of all. Must say that for sure. And then also, I would encourage you to fund schools, for the long term, not just for short-term results. And I wanted to clarify, I don't want it to seem as though our school, won't be high performing. Research shows that dual language immersion schools, as time passes, those students are on grade level, if not excelling compared to their peers, but it requires some time for them to get there. So I urge you, please, give the space for that journey to take place. And if I may, if you're building schools, you've got this, right? And be willing to hold fast to the model while still being open to adapting your implementation. Okay, because the moment you ignore what students need, just to stay on plan, honestly, we've already lost our way. And so those would be my two sort of main pieces of advice.
I think ditto to what has already been said. I think number one, the long term, funding for the long term, for a lot of our kiddos who have not been in school or haven't been in traditional school or have had incredibly interrupted access to academics and traditional education, it's going to take a little longer of a runway to show. And then also being creative with how we're assessing what success looks like, because our kiddos, they're being assessed by a system that doesn't work for them. It wasn't designed for them ever, right? So they need to be able to show what they know in different ways. Otherwise, they'll continue to be underestimated. So given a little more time and being creative with what success looks like and how we measure that.
Yeah, to build on that is thinking about what success means for our students and holding the line of what high expectations are, right? Just define it correctly. For our students, it's not just exposure to grade level content. It's truly about access, right? And supporting them with their skill development, as well as providing access to that grade level content in meaningful ways, to build off of what my colleagues were just sharing. So that high expectations do equal, actual access.
So if you are an influencer, decision maker, hope you wrote that down. Can't wait to see how it informs your next strategy. With that, look at us. We have even more time for Q&A than we originally wanted to. I told them ahead, I'm like, lots of Q&As are getting cut short. We're not going to do that. We're going to leave time. And now we have a lot of time. It's going to be great. Also, I did have a Mentimeter. She's not working right now. So if I could get a new schooler in the back to maybe be a microphone runner, I think, Stephanie, you offered. Wonderful. If you would like to ask a question to this fabulous panel, either to any of them or one of them specifically, just kindly raise your hand, and Stephanie will make her way over to you. Oh, nice.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say just thank you for what all of you are doing. I was a teacher for over 15 years. At the first 6 years, I was in D75. And the first day I walked in, I was so scared. I called my mom, and I was like, you got to get me out of here, because I didn't know what to do. I wasn't used to that. I was special education certified, but I wasn't trained in that.
I don't mean to interrupt. Can you explain what D75 is for folks who may not know?
D75 in New York City is a special needs district. And it houses students mostly who are on the spectrum. And if you have never been in a building, it can be very intimidating, especially if you are a new educator. My question to you, just based off of what we do, because I know this is very student-centered and getting the students what they need, but it can be very, very demanding for the educators in your building. So what are you providing the educators in your building so they can lead from a place that benefits the students?
Specifically to anyone, or?
Anyone. Yeah.
I can start just for... So that is a really great point, and it's something that we took very seriously from the beginning. I keep looking at Carrie up here because she's my clinical director, and kind of energy infuser. So number one, we try to infuse staff recognition in everything we do. So throughout the day, everybody has a walkie, everybody's a radio, so you'll often hear people get shout outs when we see something cool happening. We have a staff shout out board where people can just write something, recognize it. We do potlucks a lot. We do parties. We have a Thrive store, so we have Thrive tokens where if we see somebody doing something great, we give them, it's PBIS for your staff, right? They get a Thrive token, then they can turn it in for something cool. We also, in terms of support, one thing I hear from our staff all the time is they've never been somewhere where they have so much support. So all they have to do is make a call, and there's somebody coming to their classroom. So whether it's myself, Carrie, we have another BCBA, we've got folks that are always on call and ready to come in. They never feel like they're alone. So I think that just that constant presence really, really helps. I'm really proud of the staff culture and morale that we've built because it's a hard job. It's very hard, but we have so much fun, and we love those kids, and we love what we do, and you can see it and feel it.
Yeah, within our context, we're fortunate enough where we have a school support organization, Literacy Academy Collective, and I'll get into the way in which that they support. However, you know, a lot of our teachers are coming out of teacher prep programs without having the kind of requisite training to support our students. So what we do is our school support org has a summer practicum. So the teachers, the new staff that are coming in, go to a summer site, and they're coached by expert mentors in our foundational skills program and so forth. And they also receive job embedded support across the year, and will continue to. So I think that's like a big leverage support, and that, you know, they're thankful to have as well.
And this is in a district school, I should point out.
Yes.
Summer practice. You want to answer too, Chris?
Yeah, that would be great. For our school, as you said, our work is definitely student-centered, and we know that we can do nothing for students if our teachers aren't well, so I appreciate you asking that. One thing that we made sure to prioritize at our school was making sure that teachers knew that we were there for them as well, and that we were willing to give them the same types of support that we were offering families and students especially in this specific context, which I'll share. So I don't know if you're aware, but this past year we had a very stressful series of months with the ICE raids that took place in Charlotte. And in large part, it's still ongoing. At that particular time, there was a lot of fear for our families, for our students, and also for our teachers. And so we wanted our teachers to know that what was happening outside and inside of our doors mattered to us. And so for us, that looked like we made a decision. We took, you know, some people might say, why did you do that? But our teacher safety came first. We took down the sign that said dual language school. We were kind of tucked in the corner, so we made that decision for safety. We had our staff that are immigrants, they were inside. They didn't take on dismissal duty. They didn't take on recess. The rest of us who felt comfortable doing so, we stood in their place. And we did that because, again, there are no students, there's no progress with our kiddos if our teachers aren't well. And so we needed them to know that we were there for them. And that was one way that we were able to do that.
Ready for another question?
Hi, thank you all. My name is Julian. I'm founder of Emote, and before this I was a school founder. And I think one of the things I remember is all of the compromises that have to be made and how some of them can be heartbreaking. And I'd be curious, as you look at the work you're doing, what are some of the compromises that you've had to make that have been hardest? Just any reflections on that?
Personally or professionally?
Not personally.
That's real. That's real.
So one for me is we're a school for students with significant autism, right? I didn't want to say no to anybody, right? To me, our families have heard no over and over and over again. There's places in our community that are, specialized for kids with autism, as long as you're potty trained and you don't have too many behaviors and, right, fill in the blank. So we really designed ourselves to be for the most impacted. That's my niece, that's my founder's twins. However, we're also a brand new organization, still building our infrastructure. We're a 3-to-1 ratio model, and the reality is some kiddos that are very significantly impacted need 1-to-1 support. So we had one particular individual who had never been in school before. He came to us as a second grader, and when I say it was like a tornado, it was like a tornado, and it was taking 3 people all day long, including our best, 2 of our BCBAs. And we tried and we tried and we tried, and by October, I just knew that I was gonna lose staff, and I was gonna lose morale. Was tough, not just in that classroom, but kind of across the board. It was a pivotal moment to go, what are you gonna do? Did the needs of one outweigh the needs of the other 79 and my staff? And so we had to make a difficult decision, and it tore my heart up. It was awful, but I do feel like it was the right decision for the long run. And since then, we've actually been able to make some adjustments so that when we have those types of students, we actually partner with outside agencies and allow private registered behavior technicians to come in, which is not typical. Most places say, no, you can stay out. We have 16. We have 16 of them within our building, and that allows us to keep kids that maybe we wouldn't otherwise be able to serve in that 3-to-1 ratio model. So.
So I think one of the things that we had to realize is that we weren't going to be able to do everything that we wanted well. So we really had to be realistic and play the long game. Our school really focuses on project-based learning, on collaborative environments, on embedding language and content. And not all of our staff are very familiar with that yet. And we recognize that, and that we needed to invest in our teachers and our staff. But really, we had some difficult meetings to decide upon, what are the main priorities? What are the 2 things that we want to get done and do well? And we decided that it was really that our students feel safe and supported in our school, and that we are seeing project-based learning in some form in every classroom. But we also, I think, had to really embed a mentality and mindset for our teachers and staff to feel comfortable with experimenting immediately. And if they don't get it right the first time, it's okay. And we've have a lot of support for those teachers in moving forward. But I do think that we're really succeeding in that promise. Our students are happy. It's almost like we have to shoo them out of the school. They don't want to leave. So so I think we're delivering on our promise, and I'm glad that we made those difficult decisions. It was a bit of a compromise, but we know that there's plenty more to do, and we have a growth mindset about it, and so we have a lot of room to grow, but I think we're getting the basics down.
I'll restate what I said earlier, which is compromising on the language allocation model for our second graders and deciding to do 80-20 for them, but with English being the primary language of instruction. We received a lot of side eyes from very important people. I'll put it that way. And not everyone was supportive of our decision to do that, but we really wanted to be responsive to what we felt our students needed and what would set them up for success. And so with that, I'll lay out my point that I didn't get to say before, which is great because I think it connects, which is that the most powerful schools are rarely the ones that fit neatly into the system. And I feel like this is for those of you who are out there creating and doing this work as well. They're the ones who are responsive enough to challenge it and strong enough to stay rooted in who they are while doing so. And so you may have to make those difficult decisions, but as long as you don't lose sight of who you are and what you're there for.
Ooh. Do I take one more question after that? We have time for one more. Let's do one more. But go ahead. Crystal was like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. I don't know what to... Girl.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's been incredible. Tell me, each one of you, what you're most proud of in the last year.
I'll kick it off. What Andrew mentioned before, to see our third graders reading and to hear from families about like, wow, my kid is reading. And that is the bright light.
I think going back to the similar point made before that I think we're delivering on our promise. Our students feel like themselves and they feel like they can be themselves, and sometimes it's the first time they've felt that way. Our principal, who's sitting in the back, has a great story about one of our students who was really being loud and being herself in the hallway, and immediately apologized for it. But it was made really clear, no, this is okay. You're okay. And she said that she wouldn't have done that in her school prior. So I think it's just so important that our students feel safe, that they feel they can be themselves, particularly when they're coming from backgrounds that they don't often see themselves represented in the schools that across other districts around the country. So I think we're doing that right, and it feels good, and you know, and it enables us to really take some chances as well.
I didn't mention this before, but my son and daughter actually go to our school. They go to Honor Prep, which is great. So I have my parent hat on when I say this, but I'm proud of them both. Ava is in first grade, and her teacher just sent me a video the other day. Y estaba leyendo en español. Wow! And when she started, she knew nothing. I mean, when I tell you, she went in with just a completely blank slate. And to see her in that video reading and smiling, and then get up, because she didn't even know she was being recorded, because if she did, it would have been a completely different video for Ava. But she got up and she gave her teacher a big hug, and it was just, to me, it solidified, it cemented what we already know to be true on our team, and the belief that New Schools has had in us, which is that the model works. It does work.
I don't know that I can answer this in one fell swoop, but I am most proud of the community that we've built, both for our staff, our students, and our parents. We did a parent survey, and 100% of our parents rated their satisfaction with the school as either highly satisfied or satisfied. We have a 100% re-enrollment rate for next year, with over 300 on our waiting list. So that's like the metric, but what I feel moving through the hallways every day, so I still have a lot of connections with the district, and so people will ask me, like, how's so-and-so doing, because they were very happy for him to come to our school. And when I get to say he's a student mentor, and he goes and he reads to the second graders every day, and they're like, he what? And so just to walk through the hallways and to see their confidence and their self-esteem, and them be proud of who they are and their unique gifts and their unique interests, and to see parents come and connect with other parents. And we do parent support groups, and parents have told us they felt so isolated. So just that community, and you just feel it. You feel it, and that's what I'm most proud of.
Emily gave me that look because before the session we were talking about how one of the most fun parts of working with students with autism is getting interested in their special interests and just really having to get in tune with them, because that's the best way to anchor the student when you need them to do what you need them to do. My office was covered in Minecraft, so it's like covered. It was fun. It was so much fun. I want to name that these schools are not edge cases. There's a lot of schools like these ones in the country. Schools that have the crucial design question of, who are we doing this for? And leaders who did not wait for a system to catch up. A system that where a school like this didn't exist, where a school was closing amid enrollment, a school where the federal government was attacking the students you were trying to serve. Instead of choosing to lean into what already existed, they had the audacity to do it anyway. And I think those last responses demonstrate why that was important. And the question for everyone in this room about what you do next is, what will you build, fund, or change because of what you heard today? And even more importantly, for whom? Before we thank these folks, I want to ask Gina, Ilya, Jenna, and Justin to please stand up. Gina, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Right there, stand up, you, yep. So these are also folks who work in these buildings. Oh, and Naomi, please. These are also folks who work in these buildings. So we are not just going to thank these panelists. We're going to thank the folks who maybe you didn't hear from, but who are so crucial to the work that they are doing. So join me in thanking all of these leaders. We can only have so many people on the stage, but I can tell you this is a group effort to launch these schools, and I think it's important we recognize their teams as well. Thanks, friends. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please come up and chat with our friends. Enjoy the rest of the summit. We'll see you at the closing plenary.